Hi everyone, this is Robin Landsong, and welcome to my series on giving you some of the highlights of the classes that I teach online. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope it's useful to your health and your healing, and we welcome you to join in on the full classes, which you can find on my website. Thank you. So again, this class is about how to be a healthy empath and not be overwhelmed by people, by situations, by the world. So first I want to define what is empathic. And the beautiful definition is to sense the inner world of others. And so all of us have that capacity unless there's been a big disturbance somewhere along the way. And so even as infants, we can sense the inner world of others. An empathic connection is that ability to step into the shoes of another person and understand their feelings, their perspective. And we use this understanding to guide our choices and our actions in relationship. And I really want to differentiate the difference between empathy and compassion. So again, empathy is that sensing somebody else's internal state. And for a lot of us who are highly empathic, we sense that in our body, in our emotions. And so we register it right here as if it's our own experience. So compassion begins with empathy, begins with noticing the suffering of another. But compassion has a different quality. It can have a little bit more differentiation. It can have a little bit more boundaries. And it's really an action word. So it's responding to someone's suffering with caring intent through wise action or wishing the relief of their suffering. So sometimes we can't take action. We can't, be Red Cross and go in and actually take action. But we can be compassionate witness, or we can just even do prayer on their behalf. I wish the relief of their suffering. And so the importance between empathy and compassion is that sometimes empathy can overwhelm our system because we're feeling their distress, we're feeling their suffering. Compassion is coming back over here in ourself, recognizing our limitations. We may or may not be able to take action, may or may not be able to change their suffering, but we can do the two actions of doing something or wishing the relief of their suffering. So it's a little bit more in our own center, whereas empathy is kind of being with. And so here's kind of the glitch spot in empathy for those of us who are highly empathic or got raised in a way that cultivated codependency. So again, the first picture with the legs joined of not being able to tell the difference between ourselves and somebody else. And then the second picture where we're kind of overlapping. Again, not being able to know where the other person starts and stops and where we start. And so this class is really about encouraging you to do, meditation, embodiment, exercise, different things to come home to ourselves so we can know what's just Robin. So when I do an empathic reading with somebody else, I can tell what's mine and I can tell what's theirs. And so again, being empathic is just fine. It's when we get into codependency that we can kind of be too impacted by others and rush too quickly to try and relieve their suffering. And so there's a lot of research being done about particularly the relationship between people who are highly empathic and people who have narcissistic behavior. So it can be the draining and sometimes dangerous dance with a person who has narcissistic behavior. And one of the things that a person who's acting from narcissistic behavior does is try and confuse and frustrate the empathic person. So we argue back. And so the key is to unhook, don't argue back, stop defending ourselves, and just observe what they're actually saying. So I'm kind of really diving into this kind of specific problem with being a highly empathic person is getting fooled when somebody is not actually being thoughtful of our experience. And when we just listen to what they're saying of us, they might be telling us just what they're doing. So if they're accusing us of being manipulative, they might be telling us what they're doing. It's really common that, especially if in a marriage, that one person, like more commonly, males are demonstrating narcissistic behavior, and the husband might accuse the wife of having an affair when what he's saying is, I'm having an affair. But when it puts the other person in a defensive stance, then that the empathic person is spending all their time arguing and defending themselves and not noticing what's actually happening. So I just really wanted to bring that as a particular vulnerability with empathic people. So boundaries, again, are about being with, but not becoming. This is the difference between empathy fatigue and grounded embodied compassion. So we really can be generous, we can be thoughtful, we can be with people in their suffering when we stay in compassion. But if we're just becoming them, then we're going to have empathic fatigue rather quickly. So again, that self-connection is the best self-protection. And so I'm going to go over some resources of some books that I find really valuable. So moving from, I love this book, Kristen Neff's work, the Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook. And it's really moving from self-criticism towards self-compassion. So again, if we have a lot of self-criticism going, and I'm going to go back to that example of being codependent with somebody who's got narcissistic behavior, their criticism of us is going to hit off our self-criticism, and we're not going to be able to tell the difference. So the more we can come into self-compassion, self-knowledge, the more we can spot it when it's really about the other person's issues. And the more we can stay steady of like, oh, it's not about me. And then that's a place of empowerment rather than a place of sort of quickly going under. I do my minding my own business exercise. So I literally get really grounded and really self-aware. And people often talk about being grounded, but what does that actually mean? And so I ask myself, where's my pelvis? How do my legs and my feet feel? What do I need? Do I need to go to the bathroom? Do I need a drink of water? Do I need to move away from that noise? Do I need earplugs in? So a lot of us who are empathic are very sensitive to stimulation. So when I'm going to go into a place like that, I have earplugs, plus I have those noise canceling headphones. I make sure to take my adrenal support, and I make sure that I've done some exercise beforehand or after, so that I have gotten grounded in my body. And so reasons that we might have difficulty between being grounded versus stuck. And so I particularly chose this picture because when I was doing my trauma resolution work, the kind of what I call the gritty years, and people would say, get rooted like a tree. And I would think, a tree can't run. And I needed to run fast as a kid. So if we have a history of physical or sexual abuse, it might have been this incredible opportunity to increase our intuition, but to a hypervigilant anticipating danger point. So we might have been born intuitive, but it got developed into hypervigilance. So using our highly empathic ability to guess what others need or caretake them, so we're staying safe or trying to help them not become aggressive. So again, this is where we want to really pay attention to who's safe and what choices do we want to make around other people's behavior? How close or far do we want to be from people? Rather than trying to change them or caretake them, we get to decide, actually, I just want to back up from this relationship and maybe not spend so much close time together. So again, the benefits of embodiment, not letting our fear of abandonment rule our adulthood, regaining our inner authority and agency, finding and using your voice, which is the really primary place to sense your no and sense your yes in your body. I remember when I was about 24 and I was in therapy, and I was asking my therapist about a friend of mine had sent me a letter that was really confusing to me. And I was asking her, like, what's wrong with this letter? And she just pointed out to me how much it was how invasive it was and how much it was kind of a violation of my boundaries. And I was like, well, how do you know that? And she said, feel into your gut. Feel into your body. Do you feel like you're recoiling? Do you feel like you want to back up? Do you feel like you want to run? So those are all indications of no. So again, one of my movement teachers, Emily Conrad, she would use the phrase, movement is your ticket to get out of jail for free. So if we're frozen, if we've gotten into parasympathetic, if we've gotten into being stuck, just even the tiniest bit of movement, even like a pinky, a toe, and trying to get ourselves moving again, which is going to get ourselves breathing again, which is going to get ourselves back into our self-sensing. And so exercise that you like, that's gentle, that's not about self-punishment, walking with friends or in nature, dancing in your living room, even one song, a 4-minute song, dancing in your living room, and seeing how different, how much more you're able to self-sense. And I just want to say too that one of the reasons we may not practice self-sensing is because there might be pain there. There might be distress. And that on the other side of that distress or sadness or grief is our ability to have our agency back. So, anything that works for us, yoga, continuum, laying on the earth, Tai Chi, Qigong, just hanging out, petting our cat. The other key to healing our nervous system and being able to come home to ourselves is being seen. So this is another great book on attachment and what happens when we don't have safe, consistent people to attach to. We all need accurate reflections of who we are. And attachment trauma is caused by lack of somebody safe to bond with. And so the primary thing that I work with on helping people heal is attachment and being able to attach to ourselves, come home to ourselves. Because if we didn't have, say our parent was a narcissist or borderline personality or trauma survivor who hadn't had the benefit of doing their work, whatever the reason, they may not have been fully available, or they didn't grow up with good touch, so they didn't know that touch was essential for our brain development. And Bessel van der Kolk, he speaks of neglect and abandonment trump over violence, meaning if we got hit as a kid, eventually we're going to figure out that's not right and that wasn't our fault. Whereas neglect and abandonment are much easier to internalize, to think, oh, we must not have been lovable and there must have been something wrong with us, that our parent wasn't as responsive to us. So that's why I say it's trickier to heal, because it's trickier to identify. Here's another one of my favorite teachers, James Gordon. He has the Center for Mind Body Medicine. And he, among anybody that I've studied with, has a chapter in his book on including nourishing food to help heal your nervous system. And so I also include breathing clean air. So again, having food that helps your nervous system, whole food, less processed food, adrenal support, vitamin B is also essential for our nervous system. Breathing air that's free of toxins, Tide, Gain, all. Brands of clothes washing soap are all toxic. Dryer sheets are crazy toxic. Hair dye that's mainstream, perfume, all toxic. And all these things give our immune system and our brain, well, they give us damage and they give us something to process. So we're not as available to process our trauma or process our joy, having a good time, because our systems are full of toxicity. So I really suggest switching to BioClean, unscented Ecos. Wool dryer balls can replace dryer sheets. Henna can replace hair dye, and essential oils can replace perfume. And if you go to Environmental Working Group, that's a great place to find other products that are free of toxicity, because Environmental Working Group will rate things on a scale of A to F. And a lot of products that say free and clear, it's not true. It's labeling. So going to Environmental Working Group is really the best way to find out what's really free of toxicity, because like Tide has a free and clear and it's rated F. It's carcinogens and endocrine disruptors. And I really like to emphasize this one because this stuff gives me a headache. And 1 in 4 people get a headache from these things. And because we're really raising a generation of kids who are having all kinds of endocrine problems. So that's why it's absolutely critical that we switch over. So this is my drawing I did when I was having a lot of sadness from the fires, from COVID, from all kinds of things. And so permission to feel sensation in your body and naming your emotions. So in this drawing, obviously it was really about sadness. And that research shows that naming our emotions, sadness arising, anger arising, gets us out of thinking and looping. So if you notice like, oh my God, I've been looping on this conversation I did or didn't have for 20 minutes. What's my underlying emotion? Oh, I'm feeling sad. Oh, I'm feeling left out. When we can name that and feel that, if it's a simple situation, not too complex, we can usually get through the emotion in a minute and a half, research shows. Permission to cultivate your self-connection, that going back to our original self, that self before we had insult or injury. And this is my drawing of my own death experience when I was going back to my original source before I was born. Permission to strengthen our intuitive knowing. So often when we're overwhelmed by being an empath, we try to shut down our intuitive knowing. But that ends up making a lot of tension in our body because it's denying our natural gift. It's denying who we are. I was in a meditation group and I described once the visions I got when I meditated. And one of the people who was not visionary said, don't do that. Meaning like, stop having visionary experiences. And I was like, I'm sorry, that's who I am and how my brain works. That's like saying stop breathing, you know? So they didn't really understand that I wasn't trying to go for these things. I just am visionary. Permission to reclaim your connection to nature, that nature is our place of origination, that we are made of the same thing as the earth. And that going back home to what we're made of helps us simplify, get past our story, and just remember we are breathing in and breathing out the sun, the wind, the land. And permission to restore our connection to spirit, whatever that means to us, to our divine source. And again, this is my drawing of to symbolize the woman who mothered me in Zimbabwe. So here I'm going to do a prayer and sing to you. And you can close your eyes if you want. There's also going to be artwork being shown. So if you want to keep your eyes open, you can do that too. So may you have gentlest path possible. May you be free of unnecessary fear. May you experience safety and belonging. Breathing in and breathing out this prayer, may you have gentlest path possible. May you be free of unnecessary fear. May you experience safety and belonging. Letting go of what is past, letting go of what may come, letting go even what was happening now. Don't try to figure anything out. Don't try to make anything happen. Relax right now and rest. Hi, I hope you enjoyed the highlights of my class, and I welcome you to join in on the live classes. And in those, I'll give even more content, and I'll sing to 3 people in the class. And then we'll do question and answer so we can have some community connection and get to what's really important to you, what you're wanting help with. So I welcome you to visit my website and see the list of my current classes or meditations being offered. And so there's also my 5-person groups, and those are really quite amazing. 5 people from around the world can sign up, and in that I do a little session for each person. So that involves I do an intuitive drawing and a singing medicine for each person. And what's really happens that's amazing to me every time is the community connection that happens with what started out with people who didn't know each other at all. And that using my job as an empath is to say, I see you. I see your strengths. I see your struggles. I see your potential. And I see your brilliance. So again, I encourage you to sign up for those. And then there's also my individual sessions if that's more of interest to you. So if any of that sounds good, I look forward to working with you. And then also on my website is my artwork turned into a blanket. So this is my lion drawing and my mama Africa turtle turned into something that you can wrap around yourself. So hope you have a great rest of your day. And I look forward to working with you if that feels like a good match. All right. Namaste.